right, welcome makers to another one of the Makers Mashup Tech Talks. Tonight I'm got Nick here with me, and we have Billy Rubin, and we also have Brian Vines from BV3D. Welcome everybody.
Hello.
Good evening.
Hi.
How is everybody tonight?
They tell me I'm adequate.
just adequate, huh?
You're more than adequate, Brian.
That actually sounded a little disappointing. So I would agree. I think you're more than adequate. So for those of you that have been here for the first time, I'm Rob. I am the person that runs Makers Mashup here. And I'm also always assisted by Nick here, who is my partner in crime on the channel. And then tonight we have Billy Rubin, who is always on Twitter. So I got to ask Billy before I introduce Brian a little bit more. You got new social presence? What YouTube channel? Anything yet? We're so excited to
I have started putting together a website.
You into the YouTube verse here.
I feel like people are, yeah. So I have got a video in the works about how to make your own DIY gradient filament.
Awesome.
So you can 3D print your own filament. It's using a process that Dasmia created, but I made a way to make it just a little bit less manually intense.
Awesome.
So mostly her method though. Yeah. So it's just I'm learning that making videos takes a really long time.
Yeah,
not super conducive to people with ADHD personalities. So
if I can do it, you can do it.
Yeah.
I got to get onto it, but I have been making a website, which I probably should just get out there because it's fine.
Awesome. Yeah. And then of course we have Brian Vines from BV3D, and if you're not following his YouTube channel, check it out. It is a great channel, and Brian, your content is just fabulous. I love looking at you produce a lot of really good quality videos. Even the thumbnails, I always like the thumbnails because it's always like Brian going like, yeah, this is great, and I'm awesome, and I'm like, I love it. So it's absolutely great. So welcome everybody to tonight's show. If anybody's in the chat, you're welcome to ask any questions of anyone here in the chat. I see CW3D, one of our Patreons, and always hanging out in our Discord channel. And if you enjoy talking with makers and doing that kind of stuff, hang out in our Discord channel. It's really great. We don't just talk about 3D printing. It's really everything. So it's really a great place to hang out if you want to talk and hang out with other makers. So tell us a little bit more, Brian, about yourself and your channel for anyone that's new tonight.
Well, I kind of wanted to start doing a 3D printing channel about 2 years ago, and maybe about 2.5 years ago. I was watching Country 3D a lot. He used to do streaming almost every morning a couple of years ago, and I kind of got the bug about doing YouTube stuff, and I was like, should I do a channel? Should I not? And he was like, just do it. So I just did it, and God, the first few videos were just awful, but I kept doing it. So I've been doing that for almost 2 years. I think on the 21st of this month, it will be the channel's 2-year anniversary. So,
that's awesome. That's awesome.
Well done.
And like Billy was saying,
so just clearing a year and having someone that's done it 2 years, I always feel inspired when I see people that have been doing it longer than me, and I feel great about that. So
yeah, and like Billy was saying, it can take a long time to make a video. It can take hours and hours and hours to get something that is kind of okay and is like only 10 minutes long. But
yeah. I don't know about you personally. For me, I think it's about 8 hours of editing time at least for YouTube. For like you said, like a 10-minute video, it seems to take at least that long to get a quality video with the cuts and everything that you're really looking for to get it right.
Yeah, I tend to script everything that I do. So when I'm doing a live stream like this, I'm unscripted. So you'll hear me say a lot. Just did it. The funny thing about is they're about 0.7 seconds long. And I know this because I've cut a lot of them out of my videos before I started really scripting. And so now
That's
what I
awesome.
do is I'll write a script, and I've got a little teleprompter that I've kind of built out of an iPad and a sheet of picture frame glass and some foam core board. So I use that. So I get that script written, and then I basically shoot the video, and then I go back and shoot B-roll. I try to plan out the B-roll shots as best I can based on what the script is, but a lot of times I'll get into the script and I'll get going, and it's like, oh, yeah, I'm going to need another B-roll shot of this, like a close-up of something that I forgot that I needed a close-up of when I was doing the script. And so that kind of adds to it, but it's fun. Continuity is fun too. Is everything in the same place on the bench that it was between this cut and that cut?
You know, I quit worrying about that. I really did. At the end of the day, I think it's the content most people are concerned about. But yeah, you do end up in the comments where somebody's like, "Hey, at 3 minutes and 42 seconds, your screwdriver vanished." You know, so that's always always funny.
That's like, okay, you now have a job as my continuity editor.
Yeah. I always love those voiceovers when someone has to come back and they like either the audio is bad or something. They gotta like dub over it. And you can totally tell like it's so different.
Like the volume changes and everything.
Yeah, this was clearly recorded in a much better environment.
Yeah.
See, I've just been doing like close-ups of things and not my face with the intention to like audio over the top of it, so that I'm like don't have to do a good shot with me looking at the camera, because I feel like that would be really hard.
That's the style I use for my videos. I mean, I get up there and I do my little, bit and talk about what we're going to make or whatever we're going to do. But then, yeah, a lot of it is, here's the actual way you do it, or here's the process. And I try to do more of the voiceovers. I find it's just more convenient, and it's easier for editing too, because you can just voice over. You're watching the video and you're just talking, and it seems to work really well. So yeah, I've got a lot of respect for the people that are able to do it and talk and video it at the same time. I have no skills for doing that. It's one or the other. Very short attention span. So yeah, so this is great. I think all of us were on the Makers on Tap stream. That feels like that was a couple of weeks ago, was it? It wasn't last week.
It wasn't that long ago.
Yeah,
weekend before last, right?
2 weeks ago.
2 weeks ago.
That was so much fun. Oh my god.
Yeah, that was a good time.
That was, and I love.
Things started getting a little squirrely at the end, but it was fun.
Yeah, well, we're squirrely kinds of people. Yeah, I was really good. I've never been to Murph before, so it was nice to have like a little bit of the taste of it, like with the kind of the culture, I suppose. It was lovely, really lovely.
All people hanging out having beers. I love it.
Yeah,
awesome. Kobeer, you've got
hopefully.
A question here. Is the new Core XY going to be scalable to 500 millimeters cube? Well, the cool thing about the new Core XY printer that the series will be starting on hopefully this weekend. I think I've got all the stuff. Actually, I'm going to start it this weekend, but you could scale to any size you want, but the real key is that you would have to change the extrusion length. So, but yeah, you could scale it to 1 meter build plate if you can find one that big.
Yeah, and you'd have to obviously do some probably thicker extrusion in a few places as well, just to give it a little more rigidity. So yeah, it's probably scalable. Obviously, you need bigger belts and things of that nature. So everything you got to kind of scale up a few things, but yeah, there's nothing inherently fixed about it other than the bed. It is hard to find a bed bigger than about 400, I think, ready made. You'd have to start
if I could find a 500 millimeter bed, I'd buy one and I'd build it.
Yeah,
just to have a 500 millimeter bed, right?
Creality.
And like maybe if you go to, do they
really
500?
Well, they have the CR10S5, which I have in my front room. I hate the machine.
That thing is insane. That's got that bed moves, right?
I didn't. It's a bed slinger, and it's
there's no way you could print anything that big. And
I didn't know when I bought it.
Yeah.
It's terrible.
Billy, do you have a Core XY? Do you have at least one Core XY?
No, I don't. But I've fallen with deltas. Like I feel like my whole world will be deltas now. I love my delta.
You need to get it. You need to get a Core XY. It's like the best of both. Well, you know what you should do is in a few weeks when the videos come out and they're all getting published, You just build one.
Yeah.
All there is to it.
I do have a half-finished printer in the front room too, which I need to finish. But I'm trying to convince someone to make a robot arm printer because I feel like that would be so cool. Like robot arm printing, like that would be just the coolest.
Kind of like a polar printer.
Not a polar, but like a one of the robot arms that you can
like just an actual robot arm.
Yeah, just printing. I just think that would be.
I think I have seen
a robot arm.
There's no way I can
do the little gripper. Just have a 3D pen.
Yeah, exactly. Yeah, 3D pen. Oh my god, that would kind of work.
There was some company that made a 5 or 6 axis like print head that could do like curves and all kinds of things, and like obviously other than printing upside down. Yeah, it was pretty cool looking, but
and
I can't remember who that was.
Planar printing, you could like make it all.
Yeah, all of the curves,
really strength and stuff too. Like I just think that should be my next printer.
Yeah, and theoretically they could be faster too because you don't have to do each layer.
Well, you know the cool thing about this maker movement and people making things, Billy, is you could design one and then show everyone else how to make it.
You say that, but like
it's a learning opportunity.
I can make dresses.
Right.
Dresses?
Leave it to Brian. Oh, look at that. Bob Cards is saying Brian should build it.
Yeah, Brian, please build me a robot arm printer. Thank you.
I think Bob was talking about the comment about just having a 3D pen in the gripper.
I really like that. I feel like, but yeah, no, I have like work cut out for me for that felt printer that I'm working on. So yeah, that's like enough.
That is very cool. I know we've mentioned it a couple times, but tell everybody about that. But I am just every time you talk about this thing, I can't wait for you to build it because I want to see it.
Well, yeah. So it prints in felt, like fuzzy felt instead of filament, and using wool as the filament. And it uses a process called needle felting, which kind of tangles fibers together by jabbing them, in essence. And so yeah, we'll be strapping that onto a machine and then printing in felt. And I've worked it by hand, and it does seem to work. And I have a like prototype A kind of design that I'll stick on my Delta because the Delta can lift and lower on its own quite quickly, quicker than a like XYZ. Yeah, thank you, Cartesian. That's the word. Oh my gosh. Yeah, quicker than a Cartesian. So I'll be sticking on the Delta, and it will punch like that. But eventually, the idea is to make a sort of head that will do the punching motion itself, so you can just strap it onto any old printer and have it print. So yeah, I'm really excited to make fuzzy things. Like I just kind of have dreams of like custom pillows that are like specially formed exactly for you, or like shoe inserts, or like teddy bears, or hats, and I don't know, all sorts of cool things. I just have dreams.
Is it gonna work kind of like a sewing machine then? So essentially like
sort of, yeah, sort of.
Okay.
Yeah. I mean, it doesn't sew though. The needle, the felting needle has like little barbs on it that face downwards. So what happens is when it goes through a piece of wool, it like draws some of those threads down into the stuff below it. So it's kind of like tangling, which is what felting is. It's essentially tangled fibers. Yeah, so that's... But
then it comes out clean, essentially.
Yeah, so because they're only face downwards, like they're like little triangle sort of shapes. I'm trying to like look at myself in this triangle shapes that point downwards, so they kind of pull the fibers, but then they slide back out.
Someone take a screenshot. I'm sure this could be a meme of some sort.
Yeah, a fishing spear, if that makes sense.
It's a stabby bot.
A stab bot, yeah, it's stab
bot.
Yeah, just stick your finger in there.
At first, I thought
5,000, right? You know, by reality.
Yeah.
When you need to get stabbed, this is the printer for you.
Yeah.
That's funny. That is so cool. You're taking multi-material to a whole new level.
It should be. I hope
actually using material.
Yes,
yeah, literally. I just
There's
need to.
no end to the puns that we're going to come up with here. So
I love puns. Puns are my favorite kind of joke. So keep them coming. Yeah.
Very cool. Very cool. That is exciting. Do you know how soon I know last time we talked, which I think was on the Makers on Tap show. Do you know how far away? I think last time we were talking, you had some sort of a prototype sort of working on it. Do you know how far you are away from having it like working well, or?
Not really. Purely because like I'm very disorganized at the moment. And I'm trying not to put too much pressure on myself to be super productive. So I'm kind of just working on stuff when I feel like it a little bit because life's a bit chaotic. So not really sure, but like, it probably just takes me like a day to model up what I want to model and then give it a go and see if it works, kind of thing. And if it works, then it takes a day, but if it doesn't, then more days. I don't know. Yeah, really official production processes going on over here.
That's pretty cool. That is neat that you're taking that project on and trying to build that. That is something very cool. I've seen a lot of creativity with 3D printing, not just regular printers, of course, but there's pancake bots. I saw one that does clay pottery, which I thought was really cool. I see people making houses out of 3D printers. So FDM is really cool. And clothing you may be the pioneer that later on clothing is just 3D printed and it's never put together in a traditional way anymore. It's all 3D printed. So
that would be amazing.
Very cool. Yeah, I think it's very, very cool.
Oh, I forgot. I need to write a slide report too. Sorry, brain. Anyway, yes, but yeah, sorry.
That's very cool. I think my only maker project this week was this right here, because so I have to tell the story, right? So I made the haircut this week. It's not too bad. I thought it came out pretty good. Of course, all the haircut places are closed with the virus around, and I needed a haircut. It was getting very, very long, and I always keep my hair short. So I watched a couple of YouTube videos, of course, and gave it a go. It came out okay. I was completely covered in hair at the end. I looked like Sasquatch, and made it into the bedroom or the bathroom, and just shook his hair everywhere. It was a complete mess, but it came out all right. And I had my wife clean up the back, so it came out okay. But that was my big maker project for the week. I think it was a success. It came out as good as most of my maker projects. Good enough. So yeah. So it came out pretty good. How about you, Brian? Working on anything at all recently, or anything new in the pipeline?
Well, I've been printing a bunch of the little PPE face shield parts. These guys, the little thing here. Printing those out for the Masks for Docs project, and they're going to come pick those up in a few days. And because I've been printing those in PETG, and most of my printers that I'm printing them on have PTFE lined hot ends. I've kind of cooked the PTFE, so like the end of it gets kind of charred, and then it starts clogging. So I spent part of the afternoon fixing that on one of the printers.
Yeah, also you gotta be careful with that because there is some fumes.
Yeah, the printer that I was fixing, I had up in the attic. So
yeah, there you go.
I've got a workspace up there.
Yeah, they're not super dangerous to humans, but I mean they're not good, but they're not as bad. But like I've heard birds, like it just knocks them out. Like
he had birds all over his lawn. They were just like hanging out there because he went out.
Coming out the vent pipes, just like falling down.
A massive extinction event because I was printing.
Yeah, out there just all in the lawn. I'm kidding, of course. That's just a joke. It's funny.
Yeah, that was pretty much the reason I bought an all metal hat on, was specifically so I could print PETG.
I did the same. Matter of fact, every printer after I had upgraded the Ender, every printer just got those installed in it from the start, just so that way we made sure that I didn't have that particular issue. So I don't need to be doing anything.
Got a Micro Swiss all metal hot end on my Ender 3 Pro, which is big enough to print these parts.
I've got the same one. It's a good hot end.
And then I've got the Micro Swiss all metals on my two Monoprice Maker Select Pluses, but those are like 200 by 200 build plates, so I can't really fit this on them. But so I can't print those with that. So anyway, I had the printer up in the attic, and one of the things that I was trying to fix was that, and then I fixed the same thing on my regular Ender 3, and I replaced the regular PTFE with cap tubes, so hopefully it'll fare a little bit better. And I also bought some 0.8 millimeter nozzles, and I can knock these things out in about 25 minutes a piece with a 0.8 millimeter nozzle. So
nice.
That's something I thought, like, I didn't see a lot of people doing, is making their nozzle a lot bigger, which I thought was really bizarre because, yeah, it like makes the print time way shorter. So I did find it kind of interesting there weren't more people doing that.
I've got I bought like an assortment, so I've got a whole bunch of 0.4s, a few 0.6s. There were only 2 0.8s. Those are both now mounted on printers, and then there were a couple of 1.0 millimeter nozzles that I haven't printed with those yet.
Yeah, and I'd imagine you could print even down to like 0.5 or something with the 1.0 as well. So it should be, those should probably work just as good as the 0.8s.
Yeah, I think I was doing 0.7 layers or 0.8 layers with a 1 millimeter nozzle on my CR10S5. Like I was going real chunky. I mean, it kind of looks cool. I kind of like the chunkiness. But yeah, that was actually the one thing that made me like the printer a bit more, was putting a 1 millimeter nozzle on it, because then I was like, oh, okay, I can do something with you now. Like,
does that come with like a volcano style hot end, or is it?
Nope, it's just standard reality. I put a microscope on it. But yeah.
So did you run into, Billy, when you had your 0.1 on there? Because I've tried the 1 millimeter nozzle. Did you have any problems with slicing? I noticed that when I was putting a 1 millimeter nozzle onto one of the printers here, and then I tried printing a 25 by 25 millimeter test cube. The interesting thing is that the walls on the test cube model were 0.4. So what was happening is when Cura went to slice it, it said, well, the nozzle's bigger than the wall, and by default, Cura will filter out small lines that are in there. So all I got was the bottom of the test cube, and I'm like, where's the rest of my print? And it took a little while before I had figured out what that problem was, but I was just curious if you ran into that, because the first time, I mean, if you're printing a larger model, you're not going to notice it.
Yeah.
But interesting enough, I tried a test cube, and then all of a sudden my test cube vanished. And you're doing one of these, and you're like, why is this not working? Especially when you've printed that test cube 100 times or 1,000 times before. In my case, probably closer to 1,000. But when you printed it so many times, and you're like, why is this not working? So it took a little while before I came to realize that the wall size was a bit too thin. But I was curious if you'd ran into that issue, because I remember, is that that's all benchies? Nice.
That's benchies, and it's mostly benchies and calicats. I like calicats for my. I print those instead of cubes. And this was a squirrel cage fan that I was trying to fix an air conditioner with. So I modeled and printed this thing, and this went on the condenser side. So it's on the hot side of the air conditioner. And as it was spinning, it was just so hot that centrifugal force just bowed it out. So now it's like a cool candy ball.
Wow! So it wasn't printed that way. That's cool.
No, it was printed with straight sides.
We didn't have squirrels here. I never would have thought of squirrel.
And that was PEG.
How did it get bent?
It got bent because it's moving. It's a squirrel cage fan, like on a 50-15 blower. It's big.
And then it
was on the hot side of the air conditioner, trying to move air across the coils on the hot side so that it would cool it off.
Yep.
And it was just too hot for the filament, so too hot for that model.
That's crazy.
I even printed it in ABS. The original fan was a plastic ABS fan, but it was an injection molded part.
Yeah,
and I printed.
It could have been a higher temp version too.
Yeah, I printed it in some Ziltech ABS that I had bought, and it suffered the same fate. So I threw the air conditioner away. I bought it secondhand for $100 and was going to try and use it up in the attic, and it ran for about 10 minutes before the fan that was in it flew apart.
Wow!
Just disintegrated. Nice.
Yeah.
Hey, this is really working great.
Yeah, right.
Well, I had it
It's not
running,
rattling.
and I was venting it because I've got like an attic vent, and I just kind of had it up there so that when it was venting out. And I went down into the garage, which is immediately below the attic space. And I was down in there for just a couple of minutes, and I heard this horrendous noise coming from upstairs. And I was like,
Yeah, you did.
what happened? And I went up there, and it was like, the way this air conditioner is a portable air conditioner, and the way it was put together is the inside of it, the squirrel cage fans are plastic, and all of the ducting inside was styrofoam. And so it was a couple of the blades had kind of broken free from one side as it was going around and started digging into the styrofoam, and that was what was making all the noise.
See, like attics aren't really a thing here, and the thought of some weird, scary noise from an attic is just like horror movie stuff. I'm just like, I'm not going in there. Nope, that ghost can stay up there and do whatever it's doing. I'm not entering that situation.
Oh, I've got a workbench and all kinds of stuff up there.
Yeah, I know, like attics.
I can use that space about half the year.
Yeah, attics are pretty common here. Like I know I've got a pretty good one. I don't have anything up there, but I could if I wanted to. It's pretty open. But yeah, I mean, they can make cool workspaces because you can they're usually really open. So you just put a floor in and put some benches in, and you can have a nice space.
It does depend on the attic, though, because some of them are really not designed for people access or people things. They're, I know
they're not super load bearing. Yeah.
Yeah. So you can. Some places are fine. It's just some are not. So I know the one place I lived at last, it had an incredibly large attic and probably could have used it for that. So I think that's really cool that you've got an attic like that, Brian. That's really neat.
Yeah, and it's a walkout space. There's a door into it. So
really, you've got a nice one then.
Yeah, you don't have to pull the ladder thing down. You just open the door and go out.
Yeah, mine's even worse than that. I just have the hole. I just have the hole in the ceiling that's just barely big enough for me to fit through. You know, it's like you got to put this thing out, and it's like got insulation laying on top of it. It's like, yeah, this is the worst.
That's what
I probably won't use it.
Yeah, they don't have the ladder or anything, but I think it's because it gets so hot in the roof. Like the roof is just there to keep the heat away because it's so hot most of the year here. Yeah. We do have an under the house. Most of us have an under the house where we put our crafty spaces. So
I've got a basement as well that's all finished and nice. I just don't have it's more of a living space in my basement as opposed to there is like an area for like utilities and stuff like that, but and I could put my stuff down there, but we use it for storage instead. And I've got my office that I do stuff, and I got this closet back here which I'm going to put shelves in eventually. I keep saying that it'll happen. I promise.
One day.
Yeah. I've got a basic design, so
I have we were talking about those test cubes earlier. So this was a failed print of a dice tower. So I was going to throw it out, and then it clicked in my head that there's a great use for this. All of my test cubes come out the other side. So I saved the failed print down here so that way I can put all the test cubes through it every time that I print a test cube from now on. So, but my daughter and I were playing some games, and that night I'm like, I need to print one of those dice towers, but I didn't want to do one that was like a castle or anything because we don't always play, those type of games. I'm like, I wanted something just kind of generic, and this one is a tree. And then you put the dice in the top and they come down. But that print failed because, pro tip, by the way, if you're using Pronterface to print a 3D print, it can run out of memory while it's running your print. I guess
really?
It's loaded into memory. So that's what happened with this print. I used Pronterface. I was actually printing this on the new X301 because I don't have it hooked up to Octoprint yet. And I'm like, I'll just print it right out of here. And it got this far up and ran out of memory. And I tried it again, and I got the same thing. So
wow.
I thought maybe the first time was just a fluke, but after I failed 2 of those prints, I just tried it through Cura directly, and it worked. But yeah, so pro tip, don't try to print long prints with Pronterface. You may be disappointed.
I guess pro tip number 2 would be is if you are printing directly off the computer, don't forget that you're doing it and close the laptop and walk away.
Right. I've had people do that. They're like, I put they put their laptop to sleep, and I'm like, well, you just killed your print.
So funny.
Octopi.
Did that. He had his
exactly.
so
Yeah.
it would suspend after like 5 minutes because he's like a teenager.
Oh, yeah.
We built that printer and he had it like so it would turn off after like 5 minutes or whatever. It suspended and he moved the mouse and it started the print back up. And I'm like, I did not think that was gonna happen.
Yeah, because the printer's sitting there going like, I'm waiting. It's gonna just stay in print mode and then it's gonna get the G code and go, okay, let's go.
Wow.
Yeah.
I would not
I did not think it would restart. I did not think that would.
Sleep mode is really cool. Like the fact that you can pretty much drop all power to 0 and that comes back up and it's like nothing happened. It just resumes from where it was. Like I always found that really fascinating how they were able to save all the state and then bring it all back just perfectly. But I'm a computer engineer, so I mean I understand how it works, but it's still like it's a lot of things to piece together, especially on a PC. It's just a lot of hardware to deal with.
Yep.
So.
And welcome Paul and Dan in the chat there. See you guys hanging out. Welcome. Oh, so Nick, you've been working on any projects at all lately? Nick and I work together professionally as well. So I always know when he's busy at work. So I don't know how much time he's had this week to work on things, but I'm sure he's done something.
Yeah. So
you gotta show off your base.
Yeah,
so
I'll start with that.
I gotta tell the story here before you show this off.
Is it all about that base?
So this I think this is like a testament to Nick's cheapness, which is good. I like being cheap.
I think it was because I wanted to design something cool.
This is a great story. So I've been working on the X301. I purchased a bottom aluminum plate for the whole bottom of the printer. Now the idea is you buy the aluminum plate, it goes and attaches to the 2080 extrusion on the bottom, and you've got a full enclosure for your electronics on the printer. So it works absolutely great. But the plate will cost you about $20 at your local big box store or wherever you decide you're going to get this aluminum plate. So I'm talking to Nick about it. I'm like, dude, I'm going to go over and go get one of the plates. We have what's called a metal superstore here. And it's just this big warehouse of different metal. They'll cut to whatever size you need. And it's great. So I go over there and I'm telling Nick, do you want me to get one? And he's like, well, how much is it? And I'm like, yeah, like $20. I don't know. He's like hemming and hawing. And he's like, I'm like, dude, it's $20. I mean, I get $20 is $20, but he's like, nah, I'm just gonna like maybe print something. So, Mr. Cheap,
I printed this.
This is a bottom of a 440 by 400 printer.
Yeah. So I printed these on the Ender 3. It's 4 pieces. They connect in the middle. There's nuts and bolts in here. And then the idea is it bolts to the thing around the outside. So it's not super sturdy, but once it's in there, it should be fine. But
you can serve a pizza on that thing.
Yeah. Cool. But the idea was I've got the slots here so I can mount all my stuff, power supply, electrical board, all that stuff on there. So it was a bit of a interesting project. I was measuring everything out, and all the holes happened to be somewhere in the neighborhood of 25 millimeters apart. So I said, well, I'll just make all the slots 25 millimeters apart, make them a little thicker so I can put M3s, with a little bit of slop, and it's all just a little bit of washers. So figured that way I've got plenty of mounting options on the bottom.
I think I'm not locked into part though is that
holes in metal.
I think the interesting part, though, is that cost you $45 in printer filament to print the $20 plate to go on the bottom of the printer.
Let me think. Well, okay, so let's go through the filament here that I bought to print this. So this beige color here is the worst filament I've ever purchased. It cost me $10 for a kilogram on Amazon of PLA. These are all Overture. This is like their Pro. This is just the standard, but I think these were like 16. It was on sale or something. It was like $16. So I think all in all, this ends up being about half a kilogram of filament. So it's not too bad. But yeah, so that's like $10, $15 maybe. Considering, and I printed on my
$5.
I had my Ender 3 bed maxed out, by the way. I'm pretty sure you're not supposed to print in those last 5 millimeters, but I did.
Saved $5, but he's got bragging rights now that he printed the base of this thing.
but it's got the holes in it already, so I can just mount stuff to it. I don't have to drill anything. So
exactly.
But it was a project. I like to mess around in CAD and see like what I can do. So for me, it was fun to design it and figure out a way to like, okay, how do I get this to fit? How do I print this giant thing without, I thought I was going to have to get it running, the new printer, because it has the bigger bed. I thought I was going to have to use that to print it, but I got it to fit on the ender bed.
I like that too. I really like when you have a few design constraints and you have to like fiddle around and make it work. Like I really enjoy that process too. So I feel you. I get it.
There were some differences too. Like he's got metal brackets, which I'm going to get eventually. When I made mine originally, I had some brackets I printed, so those were kind of in the way as well. So that was part of that as well. But yeah, so I mean, it was a fun project. I also designed a little. I can show you the broken piece, but essentially, like I got a water spigot on the outside of my house, and when I moved in, I just moved in here in December. It was all cracked and broken, and when you turn it, it just was like slipped because it was all busted in here. So I actually measured this out, designed it up, and printed a new one. So there's a little project I did, around the house. And then one more thing I did this week, or was it this week or last week? So I have a cat. So I have there was a hole. So I had the finished basement, right? And it's got the stairs that go down, and under the stairs is where the cat stuff is. And it's kind of enclosed, and it's got a door, like a normal standard door, but then it has this huge hole in the wall. Why is there this giant hole? So I'm like, okay, well, I'll put some drywall in there and get it finished and stuff. But I was like, well, I need the cat to be able to get in there still without having to leave the door open. And it just, it makes it a little more, out of the way and stuff. So I found a design on Thingiverse that looked like this. And I printed it out, and it sort of works for what I needed, but it didn't have like a bottom to it or anything. It was meant to be on like a split door. So I kind of figured out what he did, and it's just a giant circle with some triangles, obviously. And so I just redesigned it. This is actually printed in 4 pieces on my ender as well. And then I super glued it together. So it's, it's together, but it doesn't have to be super stiff, because once it's in the wall, it'll be good. But yeah, so there's essentially going to be a cat head in my wall where the cat can go through to get to her litter box and food. Yeah.
That is super cute. I love that.
Yep. I found that on Thingiverse the other day. I was like, oh, that's pretty funny, because I was just gonna put a standard doing thing in there, but I was like, well, it's kind of out in the living space, so to have a kind of nicer looking thing, it's like, oh, that's where the cat goes. It looks like a cat.
With one small tweak, you could also probably have the world's largest cat-shaped cookie cutter.
Right? Yeah. And that actually, it's funny enough, it probably would almost work. Yeah, it's got the little like back piece to it. There you go.
Wow, that's a big cat cookie.
That'd be a giant cookie. That'd be like the cat's birthday cookie.
You wanted to
There's an idea.
You could make a cat-shaped pizza.
I like pizza.
Now that would be cool.
Pepperoni eyes.
That's pretty crazy.
Yeah,
So that just recesses in your wall, so the cat can get to like the litter box in that? Is that?
Yep. So yeah, there's just a big hole, in the wall. Obviously, it looks like a cat to begin with, but then this is kind of a trim, to kind of make it clean it up a little bit, because it's just drywall. So if it was just bare, it would be dust everywhere and stuff like that.
Really
so yeah,
cool.
this will just press in. And then I already have something in there now. Like I said, I found a design on Thingiverse that was similar to that. This is kind of my version of it that I had to build from scratch, because I don't know if any of you ever tried to take an STL and modify it, but I gave up.
It's interesting.
I don't feel like dealing with a million faces.
It's interesting you mentioned that. I know modifying STLs can be done. I don't know how to do it, but Jesse, who's on the show from time to time, and part of the team here, Jesse knows somebody, because when we were working on his I forget what brand it was, but we were working on like his printer. It was an old wood printer, one of the very, very first.
What was
like
it?
a MakerBot or something?
Yeah, exactly.
So, yeah.
And he has a friend that we found a model for the MakerBot, and it worked like okay, because he was changing it to use a V6 nozzle. It's kind of an overall printer upgrade, but he knows somebody that can take the STL model and remix it and do whatever they want with it. And I don't know how to do that, but I would love to learn.
Yeah, I was trying to trace the models, the STLs that were from the Thingiverse thing. But once I kind of figured out what he had done, which is really just a big circle with like some smaller circles inside to kind of do the triangles and stuff for the ears. I kind of figured out what he had done and then measured the angles manually and stuff like that. Oh, I did do one other interesting thing, which I don't have here, but my wife came in the other day and was printing out some math like worksheets for my son because we're stuck at home, so he has to do work here. So, and she's like, "Do we have a protractor?" And I was like, "I don't think so."
Oh,
I've had one before, and I was like, I can print one. And so I went and printed a protractor, and he used it, I guess. So I was like, just another little thing that like you find little fun things all the time you can print, and it feels kind of cool. You're like, oh, I could just make one of those. What am I talking about? I don't need to go buy one or find one. Heck, even if I did have one, I wouldn't know where it is. Just print one. So that was the other thing I think I printed, and then other than that, just working on my 301.
I think everybody here, and correct me if I'm wrong, but every time now that anything around the house breaks or needs a this or a that, it's like, I'll be right back. And then that's it. I'm off to modeling it up in Fusion and printing it out. And 4 prototypes later, I've got a working part to replace whatever broke around the house.
Yep.
Matter of fact, I was working on that today. I, like everyone else, I'm working from home or not going to work. So working from home, I have headphones at my desk upstairs, and the cord is always like right by the chair feet, and I'm always afraid I'm going to roll over it. So today I'm like, man, it's driving me crazy. 15 minutes in Fusion, and I created a little clip that slides right on the edge of the desk, and the wire will clip there now instead of.
Yeah, I need to do that too.
Yep, it just slides right. I'll just send you the model and you can print it. But yeah, just this little model that slides on the edge of the desk and holds the wire up just that way the chair won't roll over the cord. Because the first couple times I break a cord, I'm going to be very upset. So.
Yeah, mine's less about the feet of the chair, but I get it caught on the arm. So I'll like turn, and then all of a sudden it's like ripping things off my desk.
Yep. Very cool. I see Dum Dum Dev. I welcome. I see you all the time in the comments on the channel. So, and I see Corey Mack out there as well. Welcome. So go ahead, Brian.
Good. I was going to say, one time I had a table that was wobbling in the kitchen, and I kind of sat down in Tinkercad and just made a wedge about yay big, about that thick, little wedge.
There you go.
And it just slides right under there, and it keeps it from wobbling. Yeah. And it's sort of adjustable because it's kind of got the layer ridges and.
Oh, cool.
Space bar.
Yeah, I don't know. It's always funny when like. You can find just like even simple stuff like that because it doesn't take long to kind of design it. You can go and throw it in even in Tinkercad, or like I use Fusion.
Yeah,
like,
that's what I did.
Sketch it up real quick, and it. I made that little handle for the spigot in like an hour maybe. And that was just kind of like taking my time, and I made it all kind of nice with some like beveled edges and stuff. So I mean, I tried to make it look like it belonged, like it was an actual handle. So it, like here's an example. I made this like as a first one just to kind of make sure it fit, well. So it's more simple, but the final one's a little bit nicer. But yeah, so I mean, to me it was fun because it's like, oh, I can make something really quick, but it's like, oh, actually I can learn a couple new things, like how to make curves and things like that while I was doing it. So try to learn something new every time I make something.
I think it's really cool, all the different things that in Fusion 360 or any CAD program, when you learn those new tricks in that on how to model something. I mean, I feel like I use like 1% of the functionality in the tool, and I spend like all this time learning all the rest of the things that it can do. But when you run across that like one little trick on how to do something, it's awesome. Matter of fact, you and I were just talking about that, Nick, where we did that for one of the models on the printer, making that honeycomb. So this is a cool trick if you've not done this before. But in Fusion, you can take an STL. I'm sorry, what's the
SVG?
That's it. The SVG files, one of the line art files, and you can import it. And then once you import it, you can use it to extrude. And punch out shapes in that. So what makes it really cool is that if you want to put a honeycomb shape, you don't have to draw all those honeycombs. You just get an STL, and then SVG, and then you can resize it to whatever size you want, and then you just hit the extrude, and then pick the shape pieces, and then just go right through your part. And it's a really cool way to be able to add shapes in that you would normally have to draw manually in Fusion.
Yeah.
So I always thought it was pretty cool.
Especially like honeycomb stuff, it would take a lot of work. Yeah, I can imagine any kind of design, if it could be useful for, or doing like tracing stuff.
I also there's also, so in Fusion you have to get an SVG or some other vector file like DXF or whatever. But in 3D Builder you can just import a JPEG or a PNG, like a regular old rasterized image file, and it will magically work it out and extrude it in like one step. You literally just drag and drop it in, and it will magically work it out. So you just need like a black and I know. I made a little tutorial for it on Reddit.
What's the software called?
3D Builder. It just comes free on Windows. So it's a free Microsoft thing. I know it's also got a really great object repair tool. So yeah, 3D Builder is underrated, I think, because you literally can just drop a JPEG in, and as if it'll just take the black as nothing and any colors as something else, and you can like fiddle with a couple of sliders to like adjust it a little. I have a tutorial on it, but I can't really post it in the YouTube.
That'd be crazy.
Hey, boss, how we doing, buddy?
Hello.
So I might.
Are you taking off, Billy?
I'm sorry.
Thanks for hanging out.
Bye.
Bye, lovely people. Have fun time.
We'll do this again soon, huh?
Have a good night or day. I don't know what time it is.
It's Saturday here. It's 11 a.m. on Saturday.
She's already
living in the future.
We're all still on Friday. Thanks for coming, Billy.
Thank you so much for having me. Have a lovely time.
Absolutely. You're welcome anytime.
See ya.
Bye.
Hey, Boss Hog, how we doing, buddy?
Tired.
Tired?
Yep. It's been one of them days.
So for those of you that don't know, Boss Hog is one of our MVPs in our Discord, where we talk about all kinds of different stuff. But he's also the one of the resident really cool robotics guys. I can't believe the stuff you build, man. You got any of it nearby? Of course you do. What a crazy question.
Yeah, it always looks really good when he shows the pictures.
Gosh, I can't believe it.
Yep. I have an album in move I'm building.
Awesome.
I'm hoping this weekend I will have the whole upper torso, not including the body skins, complete. Well, I just had to get some more filament come in. I had like 3 rolls come in today. So I got 2 printers over here. They've been running around the clock trying to get. Some of these prints have been 8-10 hour prints for some of the pieces.
Wow, that's crazy. Yeah. That's amazing though. Just the stuff you're always posting pictures in the Discord of stuff you're making, and I'm like, I'm amazed because I would not have the patience to print all that.
Is it all just the printed parts still, or have you gotten some of the electrical or servos or any of that done yet?
Well, I've got the only servos I have on him right now is the servos that tilts his head back and forth, and that's so that I can go ahead and put the head on the torso. The large scale servos, I'm waiting. I've got to order them. They're a little more pricey.
Yeah,
they're about anywhere from $30 to $40 a piece. And
wow.
Yeah, I hadn't come across those. But you talking about the lengthy hours? This right here is part of the hip assembly. That's about 28 hours for all 4 of them parts.
Oh, geez.
So right now,
and you can see how thick it is. So
yeah. Does that have to be printed solid, or you do like what kind of infill you're doing on that?
It's just 20% infill on it.
Okay, not too bad then.
So right now, that robot, how many hours do you think you have just in prints so far?
There's probably close to 30 hours just in the head.
Just in the head.
Jeez.
Yeah, that's just in the head. And there's probably 50 to 60 in this upper part of this. Here,
that is crazy, my friend. Wow, look at all that.
That's just before the hip start.
Okay.
That's everything with the Connect sensor. As it goes further down, it will be the hips and the waist. And that's what this big black part, all the black pieces on it is all carbon fiber.
Okay.
And some of the white pieces in the torso, except the neck, I'm going to reprint in carbon fiber. Just mainly for the strength.
Cool. Yeah. How's that been printing? The carbon fiber, has it been all right?
Yeah, surprisingly, yeah. There's still, even though it's PLA, there's still the weak point is in between the layer lines. But actually going crossways of the layer lines, you can't break it.
Yeah.
I've sat there and I've pulled the brim and stuff, try to pull straight across the layer line. I couldn't break through it.
Wow.
Yeah, but now in between I've actually had to reprint a couple pieces where it has split with the layer lines, but not through them. But I mean, it's better than what it was anyway. Now, once I get everything glued together, on the final assembly, it'll be. I won't have to worry about it then. So I'm just kind of taking baby steps now.
So the final piece that you're putting together, is that just the torso up, or is that got the leg portion too?
It'll have the legs too. They haven't released the STL files for the motorized legs, and I don't know if they will yet. But they do have the legs there. They're just static. They're just there. They don't have.
Now, you just found it on Thingiverse, or was this paid models, or?
Well, actually, I first found some of the first parts of it on Thingiverse, and then I got looking more into it, and they've actually got a whole community set up on the InMove, and you can download all the STL files from there. It's actually a project. I think the guy is from France. I think that's where it's from. The website is inmove.fr, so I think that's France. But they have a whole community, a big community about it. Anything you can imagine.
Post. That's funny. Dev asked, why is he building it? Just because he can? And Nick, I love your response. Why do we print anything? Because we can. Yeah, exactly right. Can you post?
Why create anything?
That's right. Can you post a link to that in the chat? I think it'd be good, and then I can always pull it out, or anybody watching the video can get a link to that. That's very cool. I think
if he puts it in the chat on here. Okay, never mind.
Yeah, that is neat. And I'm glad you kept printing it and you didn't just quit while he was ahead.
Yeah. Actually, oh my gosh.
Somebody's actually created a mount where you can actually set him up kind of like an Alexa, and it lights up with just the head now.
Oh, that's
set him up like an Alexa, where when you talk to him, he actually talks and responds back.
Oh, that's cool.
That's awesome.
It's the modern version of the Billy Bass.
So what you do is you get a little like glass thing, just like Futurama, and you can print it out and have it inside there, just like the talking heads.
Oh, see, now I would build that. That I would build. I'd be like the head in the jar. And of course, it'd have to be Nixon in the jar. So it would have to be the Nixon head in the jar.
Get your modeling clay out.
And Agnew behind him or something, and it would have to be, Alexa, and it would.
Oh my God.
That would be good. That would be a lot of fun.
Get the voice change going on.
Oh, that's awesome. That would be awesome.
Yeah, put some little hands on there going like this.
I'll just get creative with it. Put a little motion sensor in him when somebody walks by and let him just jump up and start talking.
Oh gosh. Oh man, that would scare the crap out of people.
I am not a bot.
But the cool thing about it, he's actually got 2 sets of cameras for him. His eyes are actually, you can actually mount cameras in his eyes so he can see everything. But he also has a Xbox Connect sensor that that you mount, or it's got the mounts for it. You have to get the sensor yourself, of course. That mounts in his stomach, and he does motion tracking, just like if you was playing one of the games on Xbox with the Connect. You can step back and move in front of him, and he'll mimic your movements.
Oh wow!
As your move, yeah. This
Man,
guy,
cool.
Somebody actually got a video out on YouTube where they're demonstrating the Connect with him.
Oh, that's really neat. Yeah, that'd be even cool if they get like the legs going. That'll be the hard part, getting them to move the legs. I can imagine that's probably why that's taken so long.
Well, the legs, you can actually control them with some actuators.
Yeah.
Because I mean that's kind of a basic. You just have to redesign, make a little bit of redesign on the inside parts of it for your mounts for your actuators. But I mean it's completely doable.
Yeah, I was just thinking from a balance perspective. If you lift up your foot or something, and it has to lift up its foot, it would have to lean, that kind of stuff. So that's where the motorized legs get a little more complicated.
Well, because it has full range of its hips, waist, everything. It literally moves just like a human does, waist, hips, everything.
Oh, wow. Okay.
And so as far as that goes, the balance really wouldn't be an issue. You could put an inertial measurement unit in his upper torso and make him, adjust his body.
Lean against it. Yeah.
Yep, just like a person does. I mean, it's just a matter of programming it there.
Yeah, that is cool. Yeah, that's the thing. Like there's a lot of programming in that, which that'd be the exciting part for me, is just making the thing like stand properly, and you come up, if it gets bumped or whatever, can it kind of recover? Like they've got who's the Boston Dynamics stuff that they do.
Atlas.
Yeah. That
Boston Dynamics stuff is unbelievable. I mean, that's just wow. I see the videos on that stuff, the real ones, not the
yeah, the Hollywood one. Those ones are hilarious. Where they're breaking the beer bottles over its head and stuff.
Yeah, that's some of that green screen magic there.
Yeah, but the real stuff they're doing, man, that is just unbelievable.
Just the ability for it to react so well. Like they've gotten better. Like the original videos, like you could definitely tell is very choppy and stuff. But the ones they have now, it's very fluid, and like everything's much more fluid.
And the part that's so amazing is it just keeps getting better. I mean,
yeah.
I mean, it's
this is the
base technology is moving. I mean, it's only going to improve.
Yep.
Yeah, I think the big thing is I want to see a big shift away from centralized intelligence into localized. So instead of my Alexa having to call off into Amazon every time I ask it a question, maybe it could have its own local database or something of that sort where it could look up a lot of this stuff. And then, with Androids and stuff as well, it's like, I can't have my Android connected to the internet. If the internet goes down, the thing's dead and useless. Like, I'm not, if this thing costs me $1 million, I'm not paying $1 million for something that's going to go out if my internet's down.
I think I definitely think that there is a need to have it central or localized and centralized. I think
you could have both. Yeah.
What you'll see is a hybrid type situation, right? So you'll have like a lower intelligence, if you will, OS that will handle things like movement, basic responses, 3 laws safe. But then when you look at the bigger picture of, hey, what the weather is today, that local robot's going to have to go to a larger repository to get that.
Yeah,
or it'll walk over to the window and look out.
Now that would be cool.
Its finger out. Yeah, a temperature probe right there. Yeah,
sticks its finger out. Yeah,
that's actually a good point.
I mean,
that's a good point. Yeah, I think stuff like that, like obviously, like more live information. Obviously, it would have to go get it, but I think it needs to have some sort of local component to it where it can do its basic function, locally. Like, hey, can I set a timer without it going off to the cloud and asking Amazon to set a timer in the cloud? Things like that. Like bringing some of that stuff more local.
That's like 90% of the use that people use for an Alexa is the timer, and that's a published number. It's not like just pulling it out of the air. They're like the most used function is people setting a timer. And I'm like, man, that's the most expensive stopwatch I ever bought.
Yeah. Yeah, my daughter, they have after dinner, they have to wait half an hour before they can have any dessert, if they were going to have dessert. And so they'll set a timer on the Alexa for 30 minutes, and then when it goes off, then they go get their dessert. So they do that. So my wife uses it when she's cooking and stuff. So
Pavlov's children. Ding.
Rob, being that you had said that about as far as a central, a localized, and then database, and then like a centralized where it could go out and get information. I actually watched the video the other day. This guy, the way he had the AI set up on his InMove, he would answer the question, and if it was something that he already had pre-programmed and that his InMove knew, it answered it right away. But if it didn't know the answer, it would literally go out on the internet and search for the answer, and it had a little bit of a delay because it was searching for it, and then respond back.
Yeah, and then the cool part would be, if it then stored that, like this is how I answered that question, and it could even ask, is that what you're looking for? And thinking of AI in that regard, where it's not like super intelligent necessarily, but it's using these things to kind of like confirm that it's found what you're looking for, stuff like that, and more like machine learning. It's tied into AI and stuff, and I think they're slightly different pieces of thing. When I think of AI, I think of like literal thought, like the ability to think of something without context, or
Yeah, we're not talking Johnny Five now.
Yeah.
Oh God.
Yeah.
That was on the TV the other day, like dialed, going through the channel that was on, and I'm like, oh my! I watched it for like 10 minutes, and I'm like, oh man, this.
You made a reference to that the other day to me, and I was like, what is that? He's like, Johnny Five, dude, and I was like, what's that? Oh yeah, Short Circuit. He mentioned that. I saw that once.
I watched one the other day that come out about the same time frame as Johnny Five.
There you go. Brian's got it. There we go.
That was my February UFO box, but you open it up and it looks.
It does look a lot like it, yeah.
But I watched that Cherry 2000.
Cherry 2000, yes. Oh my gosh, we're totally dating ourselves. Those of you that are too
nobody else
know Cherry 2000 need to find that video. It's at your video store near the back room, but it's not quite the back
room. Actually, it's YouTube's actually advertising it right now, free with ads.
Really? That's awesome. I remember that. What was her name? The redhead in that. I can't think of her name. Meredith something?
I've never seen it.
I just watched it the other day and I didn't even pay that much attention.
Oh, now I gotta look it up. Yep. Gosh, that definitely dates me a little bit back because long time ago. Very cool. So Charles, do you know what your total cost of that build is? Melanie Griffith, by the way, do you know what your total cost of that build is going to be for the robot or thereabouts? I mean, you probably got at least $100 of filament dumped into it at this point.
The filament, probably the most expensive parts for it's going to be the large scale servos, because there's a total of 28 servos in the whole body.
Oh,
wow.
And, but that's not all large scale. It's got a lot of the MG 996s on there too. Like for the neck operations, there's each forearm has like 6 servos in it, and they're all the MG 996s. And so there's like 6 in each arm. So that's 12 just the 2 arms right there. But according to the BOM on their website is like 28 servos total, and that's where it gets pricey is the large scales, because depending on where you find them at, they're anywhere between about $20 to about $50 a piece.
Jeez.
Yeah, but as far as filament goes, I've got probably 3 rolls of white that I just got today. Was going to make a total of 6 rolls. No, and I'm on the 3rd roll now, about halfway through that one, and I got 2 rolls of carbon fiber coming. But and that's what's going to take up a lot is all the body panels, the external panels, not the structure, is going to be in the white filament.
Okay, so you're using the carbon fiber just for the structural bits, and then the white for the outside. Yeah. Yeah,
because the white is not. It's more cosmetic than anything. It's not. A functioning part. I mean, it is, but it's not nothing stressful.
Yeah, it'll take enough, it'll take some impact. So it's not going to be like super bad or anything. It, just got to watch from it like falling off of, heights or anything, of course. But that's with any of it, I suppose.
But Nick, last time I was on here with y'all, we were talking about the hardened steel nozzles.
Yeah.
I had one printer had a hardened steel nozzle in it, and I had pulled my white film, my plain white, off the other printer and stuck another spool of carbon fiber on that one, to try to double up the part, and forgot to change that brass nozzle.
Oh no!
Luckily, it was a small part, and it didn't hurt the nozzle.
Okay.
I called it in time, but Rob was laughing at me on Discord about it. I said, I know it's almost like an epic fail.
Yeah, I've seen some people they print a little bit of carbon fiber through one of those brass nozzles, and all of a sudden it's a 1 millimeter instead of a 0.4 or something.
A fire hose, man, that stuff is awful.
Just starts leaking out, Yeah, I've seen some crazy photos, but yeah, I got a I can show this. I got this nozzle here. This is I can't know if you can see it, but it's a tungsten nozzle or tungsten carbide nozzle from a place called 3D Maker Engineering. So I found their site the other day. And they've got like PEI beds and some nozzle stuff and things like that. But they've got this tungsten carbide nozzle. Wasn't too expensive. I think it was like 30, 35. Yeah. So it's supposedly essentially as strong, if not stronger than the hardened steel, or it should be stronger than hardened steel. And it's, on par with like the Ruby nozzles and things, but it's also got better thermal conductivity. So it's supposed to be able to print a little more like a brass nozzle. I've had issues with the hardened steel ones where I get a lot more stringing and stuff in my experience. So I just put my Ender 3 back to a brass one, and I haven't had like any stringing since I did that. Yeah, but I had a lot of stringing when I used the hardened steel nozzles.
I have that problem. This print here, and I don't know if you can see it. This was the failed print.
A lot of stringing inside.
Yeah, that is all.
There was a spider living in that tree stump.
Yeah. So no kidding, right? So that is with a volcano nozzle too. So if there was a chance of heating up a decent melt zone, that's probably the best way to do it. And it still strings with the hardened steel, because I put that in there specifically so I could print the carbon fiber. And speaking of carbon fiber, Dum Dum Dev is asking, can a stock Ender 3 print carbon fiber? Absolutely, you could, but
replace the nozzle first.
Replace the nozzle. Yep. Yeah, get a different nozzle. Yeah, you're gonna want hardened steel's cheap. Yeah. So if you just want to print it, and you can deal with a little bit of stringing. I don't know how bad the carbon fiber actually strings. I mean, I imagine it's similar to just normal PLA, but from that regard, but
it don't, unless it's a spot that needed support and you didn't have support. You'll have a little bit of bumping under it, but it's really not as bad as what you think.
Okay.
You was asking me earlier about the strength of that carbon fiber. See how small that piece of brim is?
Yeah.
And that's been wadded up, and it's a whole lot stronger than what that just plain PLA was.
Gotcha.
No, I've had some that I pulled off there, and I couldn't hardly pull through it.
Now,
and those brims are usually pretty thin.
Now, when you print carbon fiber, you can print it on a stock ender, probably one time, and then it's going to drill a hole through everything.
You have a lot of nozzles. Yeah.
So fun fact. I bought a roll of atomic filaments carbon fiber for printing parts on the 301, and my daughter has been really taking to 3D printing lately. She's been coming down here, and I basically gave her free reign on the ender. I'm like, go ahead, print whatever you want. She's printing, and then what she does is she paints stuff after she prints it. She's very artistic, likes doing that kind of stuff. So she's been printing that stuff. Well, we ran out of black filament, and she's like, "Oh, there's this whole brand new roll in the container here."
Oh no!
So she put that in the ender. And while my ender is not stock, it does just have a brass nozzle in it. And I came down here and I'm like, oh no. And sure enough, she had like a print through there. I think it's okay, but yeah, she's printing like a horse and out of carbon fiber film. And I'm like, well, you have the strongest horse print of all time.
Yeah, right.
So she took the carbon fiber, and I'm like, that's like a $50 roll of carbon fiber filament. She's printing a horse with it.
I hope it turned out okay.
Here's my horse. It was so funny.
And you're just crying. Oh,
I know. That's exactly what it was. I'm like, no, don't use Daddy's red reel of filament. Just not that one.
Yeah, Brian, speaking of filament, earlier you had mentioned that you had some Ziltech filament. Have you had good experience with their filament?
Yeah, I haven't had any problem with it.
Okay.
I haven't had any problem
to buy some.
Yeah, I've got like some, I got the white ABS that I printed that one part in. And that's really the only ABS print that I printed, but it was fine. I printed that out in the garage. And I've got some white PLA, I think I went through that whole spool, and I didn't ever have any trouble with it, so.
Okay. Yeah, they got some pretty reasonable prices, and they have like a neat, if you get enough of it, you can just do the normal ground shipping. But I know if you just order like a roll, they only charge you like $5 or something for shipping, so it's not too bad. And they have some neat colors.
Ziltech is the brand.
Yep. I got 3 rolls. I've been buying some of that Sonico. I got 3 rolls of it sitting here, and I haven't had any issues out of it.
Yeah,
I think that's how you call it, Sonico or something like that.
Yeah, I know Ziltech.
Huh?
Were you printing the Sunloo?
No, it was that was just the brand that it was. It was something I had got off eBay.
Okay.
It was called Sonico or something like that. I had to pull the order list back up, but I actually haven't had any issues with it.
Cool.
Yeah, I was. What was I gonna say? I forgot now. Anyway, moving on.
I ordered some new filament. There was one that So I've been buying atomic filament only because they're close. They're in Indiana, and it's
that's what I was gonna say.
Yeah, so it's close, and I'd heard the name before, so I ended up buying their filament because they were nearby. And it's basically like 2-day shipping from Amazon, except it's not. So I've been ordering filament from there, and I ordered this new one called Starry Night, and it's supposed to be in today. I'm hoping it shows up because it's like when I looked at the colors, it's like this blue, purplish color with blues and kind of a dark. Yeah, it looked really cool. A matter of fact, I just sent a message with my wife to see if it came in. It looked really cool on the website. Just I like printing with just a unique color. I think that looks really cool when you print something even mundane. That looks like this Benchy here. This one is with their blood orange, and it's the webcam really doesn't do it justice, but it's a translucent reddish orange with like a glitter in it, and it really looks amazing in person. But yeah, there's a lot of cool filaments. I just like experimenting with like neat colored filaments, doing a vase or whatever. And I've printed a number of their different filaments. I just think they look cool from a color perspective. Like black and white, I'll just order Overture or whatever's cheap. But um, yeah, so I like some of the unique filaments that just makes things look very, very neat.
Yeah, and I think that's for me. That's the thing. It's like I'll probably pick up some nicer filaments with some more unique characteristics. But yeah, like you said, for like, you know, if I'm buying black, white, red, green, you know, basic colors, I'll probably just buy something a little more, you know, on the cheaper end, because I'm usually using that stuff for just printing basic things. I'm not printing anything in particular with it. But yeah, the nicer filaments are good for that. Plus, they just have more unique characteristics. You know, they got sparkle and you know, rainbow stuff and all that. The silky filament.
Mm-hmm.
I don't know if Jesse is still hanging out in the chat, but Jesse recommended, because he does a lot of painting and he paints models. He recommended that I start getting gray filament. Cheyenne was my daughter was originally using white, and then she would paint the white and everything else. And Jesse's said use gray because it's more of a neutral color. So I've now bought probably 5 rolls of gray that my daughter's mostly printed things with. But surprisingly enough, it does a really, really good job. Matter of fact, I'm going to grab one of her prints. She doesn't even know I'm going to show this off, but let me go grab this out. She really is starting to do
no, she does a really good job. I've seen some of her paint when she's painted them. She does a really good job painting.
Nick, have you ever tried that Design Spark mechanical software?
No, I haven't. I did take a peek at it the other day, but I never actually went into it to kind of play with it.
Around a bit with it. It seems pretty legit. I think I'm gonna start using it more and more.
Okay.
No.
Now, that was the one that did like are you using it for mechanical or electrical? I know they've got an electrical thing too.
Well, I've got all 3 of them downloaded. The electrical, PC, and mechanical. No.
Gotcha.
Just it's free unless you get the pro version.
Yeah.
It seems legit. I mean, it's.
Yep.
I haven't run into any issues or anything that I couldn't do that wasn't actually easier to do. I mean, not knocking Fusion or nothing like that, because I like Fusion too, but I'm running it.
Yeah.
So I've just been messing around with this other, and I'm beginning to like it quite a bit.
Yeah, and what's kind of the main difference with the mechanical thing? Okay, so it's meant to be, yeah. Okay, that's cool. So they're kind of.
I haven't actually tried any of the PCB or the electrical stuff with it yet.
Yeah.
But as far as mechanical, it seems pretty straight up.
Okay, yeah, and I think this is similar to, I was talking to Rob about a site out there that had kind of a similar thing, but it's kind of like that thing where they've got a lot of stuff built in component-wise, and then so you can kind of more easily put together assemblies of, you know, things that already exist, and then obviously you can probably make your own models and stuff as well to include, but, you know, if you got like a servo or something that's just a basic servo, you can go say, hey, just throw that in there for me, and then you can put it in your thing, so... Yeah, I think software like this is cool because I think when I've done assemblies in Fusion and what else did I like FreeCAD? I used FreeCAD for a little bit trying to do assemblies in there, and that was a pain. It feels like it just takes forever to kind of like put things together and do it. Like I assembled the entire 301 in Fusion before I ever even built it. So I designed all my parts and everything, and I put all the components together in Fusion so I could visualize what it was going to be and check all the clearances for everything before I printed, you know, the bulk of my parts. So,
right.
And then if I update anything, it could tweak it. Go ahead.
Okay. So I've got the this is her most recent one.
Is that the carbon fiber horse?
No, surprisingly it's not. So this one's in a, I'm trying to get the camera to kind of focus a little better on it. This is, oh, there we go. So this is a just a gray PLA. And then what she used on this was a metallic acrylic paint. And then this is just like black on here. So this was like a 24-hour print with a 0.4 nozzle. Obviously, a ton of supports on this. But yeah, so she put this together. She's not done with it yet. This bottom part here still the original gray PLA color. But she's got the horse here, and she's made it all very shiny. I think it looks really, really good. She's not even done yet. This is just her work in progress.
It's like a shiny copper almost.
Yeah,
it's pretty cool.
It's a copper colored PLA. So I'm sorry, acrylic. So.
Go ahead and let that joke rip. I was thinking the same thing.
Nope, not gonna do it.
I was thinking the same thing. He's got that thing right there in his face. It's cracking me up.
Oh, you guys.
Someone asked about open SCAD in the
chat.
YouTube chat, and yeah, I've played around with open SCAD, and it's really cool. And I talked to Rob about this too at some point. You know, it's that pursuit. You know, essentially, it's like programming models. So you say, you know, draw me a circle and make it this tall, and draw, you know, lines and all that kind of stuff. So you can programmatically create models, which is really neat, cool. Because then they're much more easy to parameterize. You can kind of make different things depend on things in ways that you really couldn't do in like a Fusion or whatever. And not easily. I think you can do linkages and stuff, but you know, it can almost, I think for some things it's easier. Like people use it to generate gears and things like that, because you can easily make them parametric.
One of the guys at the local makerspace was big into OpenSCAD. And he built, like, I don't know if you've ever seen them. They're usually like round like this, made out of plastic, the little mazes with like a ball bearing in it.
Oh, yeah.
So he built one of those in OpenSCAD, but the cool thing about it is that every time you bring the model up, it randomizes the maze within it. So you always get a random maze before you print it. So I thought that's kind of a neat, you know, unique 3D print every time. You get a unique maze out of it. So
yeah, that is cool.
I thought that was very cool. With Blender and Python, very neat. Yeah, Daniel in the chat said you can do it with Blender and Python. I would love, you know, I've used Blender, and I would love to like use Blender more. I used it a little bit. I'm not very good at it, but I used it a little bit. But I would love to use that more to develop real, you know, like models of like that horse or some other object. I just don't know that I have the time or the patience to learn it more. Most of my CAD work or model work's utilitarian. It's very much what I need to do.
I always think mine's utilitarian, then I see yours and I'm like, holy cow. I spent a little more time. I round a couple edges. Rob's just like, whatever. You did like really cool stuff with the carriage design you did though, so I'll give you that. Yeah, no, I think but I think I'm in the same thing. I'm pretty minimalist on my designs. It's like, yeah, I'll throw through a few fillets here and there just to kind of round things off so I'm not stabbing myself with things. But, you know, for the most part, it's like, the square block looks great. You know, all these fancy curves and stuff. Yeah, you can keep all that. So, but I think Infusion's got that thing now where they can do the, what do they call it? Where it can cut out unnecessary pieces and stuff. Like you give it kind of parameters to say, I need it to be like about this strong, and it can like
optimization, whatever.
Which is really cool. Yeah,
kind of get that organic looking shape to it or whatever.
Yeah, so it puts all the bracing in you need, you know, based on like whatever you put
analysis or something.
Yep.
That is like
so then you can save your filament and stuff.
Not enough time in a day or a week or a month or a year to learn all the things I want to do. I mean, that's like the biggest
challenge. So much. But that's the thing. You kind of just, that's why for me, it's like, you know, when I go do something, it's like, well, what can I learn today? Because it's like, if I can just learn one thing, I'm always learning something new. And, you know, it can help me in the future. Like if I do it once, then I'll remember, I could do that. And then even if I forget how to do it in the future, I'll remember, I could do that. Let me go remember how to do that. Like doing and it can save you a ton of time if you use things like the rotate tools and the circular patterns and the mirrors and things like that. Like that stuff saves so much time. Like that, for example, this thing I was showing earlier. I don't think Boss Hog saw this earlier. This is my base plate for my 301. So that's where all my electronics are going to mount on the bottom. So that's essentially I made one corner and then I just mirrored it over to the other side. So it's two pieces. So there's a left and a right, and then the other ones are just the same parts 180 degrees. So it's really two pieces, but it's a mirror of one side to the other pretty much. So
yep. So and you did that with the stepper mounts on the 301.
Yeah. So all the stepper mounts are just mirrors. The what else is a mirror? I think there's something else. Oh, the back pieces as well.
The carriage mounts.
Yeah, I mean, it just like saves you a ton of time. You design one side, and then you just say boop, and you've got two parts, and then they're distinct for their purpose, but you don't have to design both. And then if you need to edit it, you can actually edit both at the same time. So just little things like that are really cool.
And for those that don't know,
design.
Nick is the one that is really my partner in crime when it came to developing the X301. We've literally cleared a year now on working on this printer. I mean, really a whole year of development went into this printer. So it's really cool.
And we've been so busy. Like I know I've been super busy with work and just life, and then this whole mess. I'm at home a lot more. And I just, it's been hard for me, like with as much as I've been working, my brain's shot by the end of the day. So I just veg out most days. So, but every now and then a couple days here, I'll really take a bunch of work and get it done on the printer. But, I think right now, really the biggest things I have to do is electrical. I got this base plate printed, so I just need to put that in, kind of get everything wired up, and then I should pretty much be ready to start printing again. This is the second time I've kind of built it because we did some redesign work.
So I'm kind
of putting it back together. I pretty much tore the whole thing apart. I mean, it was other than the basic frame, I had to take everything apart, all the rails, which by the way, when they say don't take the carriage off, don't take the carriage off the linear rails. You're going to have a bad time. Getting the thing back on is, I found two of them now laying on my carpet that I didn't get back in there. They're running well enough with those two missing, but it's so funny too, because once I got it back on, then all of a sudden it was fine. I could get it on and off without a problem. But it took me I wasted like 2 hours trying to get one carriage back on a rail because I had accidentally let it slide off when I was taking it apart.
So there is a video out there, and I saw it through Teaching Tech, through Michael's video. He was talking about linear rails and whatnot. I think building I think it was maybe the Ender 3. There was a mod kit for linear rail. That's what it was. And there's a guy out there, and he's got a video about how to break the linear rails down, pull those apart, clean them all out, replace the bearings. I guess there is the bearings in some of these cheaper ones, the little ball bearings, have like a different tolerance than some of the other ones. That's one of the major complaints about these cheaper linear rails. I watched the video and it was interesting. It was for me, it was a little hard to watch the video because for me, I like watching a video that's like instructional. So, here's your video and here's the instruction. This was a video where it was like 5 minutes of instruction and 50 minutes of BS during the whole video. So I have a harder time watching those videos because I'm just like
It's got to skip through them.
Yeah, I'm very analytical. I just get to the meat of the thing. That's all I need to.
Yeah, they talk about like how crappy they are and all that stuff. It's like, I don't care. Just tell me how to make it better.
I want the answer. Yeah. I just want to.
Give me like 10 seconds of how garbage they are, and then let's talk about how to make them less garbage.
Exactly. So for me, the video was good, just long, but there is, and it looks like Daniel found the video or knew the video. Alex, I don't know, is that Ketis or Kenneth? But that video was really, really helpful in knowing how to take one apart, how to clean it out, how to replace the bearings and get them back in there and get it back on the slide. So
yeah, and I had watched that video luckily before this happened to me, so I kind of understood what it looked like in there and what you kind of had to do to get the ball bearings in and out. Because if I hadn't watched that video, I would have been like, how do I get these things back in there? It's like there's this bar and like I got to take the bar out and like it'd be kind of popping back in there. But as it was apart, I kind of noticed like, okay, I could see some of the stuff he was talking about where the the bars are not exactly straight and they're kind of cheap and flimsy. It was a process, but I was able to lubricate those, so that's good. I made a bit of a positive out of it. I figured, well, if it's going to be a part, I'll make sure to get the lubrication in there and then put it back together. So
yep.
Yeah, like I said, I still found a couple laying on the carpet the other day when I was digging around for something else. So I was like, gosh darn it, and I don't want to. I'm not taking it apart now. So
why did you take it off in the first place?
I didn't mean to. That was I didn't want to take off
the rail
my Z rails. So I had my printer tipped on its back, and I was working on the bottom.
Zoop, you hit it, Brian. That was
it. I went to like pull it back up, and just off they went. And I'm like, oh. And that's the worst too, because obviously, some of the bearings like just kind of fell everywhere. Luckily, most of them were safe. It was just kind of a forehead moment. And then, like I said, I would try to put them back on the rail, and it would knock some of the bearings out because they weren't sliding properly because they're cheap, and So yeah, it was a bit of a headache, but I got it back together eventually, and they slid okay. One of them was a little messed up in a couple spots, but it was just the Z one, so I'm not that worried about it.
I can just picture in my mind this carriage sliding off this rail, and this slow motion video where it goes, no. And it just goes flying off. The little ball bearings are just going everywhere. And that's what
Yeah. Well, they're so tiny, and I have carpet, so they're just like, where in the world did they go? Could have been anywhere. So, like I said, luckily, I think I found most of them. Like I said, I got a couple that they just put in a little tray for now. I figure, well, if I ever take them apart again, I can put those in, but I'm not going to bother at this point. But yeah, when you take it apart, you're just like, man, these things are not. There's not much to it, to the point where you're like, I can't believe this thing even moves properly. Like, that's how it just seems very simple and cheap, but it seems fairly effective.
Yeah, I mean, the ball bearings just keep rolling on the.
Yeah, they kind of go. There's like a little. There's like a channel
made out of balls.
Yeah, and it's weird because I thought it was just the bearings, right? And they just slid in place, but no, they kind of like travel in this like loop through the block. Yeah, it's kind of weird. And I was like, oh, that's kind of interesting. So you got to put your oil on there, and you got to kind of move them through and push them, and then put a little more oil and move them through, just to get it all the way through the channel. So like I said, it took me like 2 or 3 hours just to kind of mess with that and put it all back together. And I'm trying to get my printers all tore apart, and I'm upset and angry at this thing. Just like, just get back on the rail. I've got so much other stuff to get back together. And this thing was like literally holding up my whole day.
That's awesome, Daniel. Do you have a link to those bearings or those rails? I'm always on the lookout for good hardware.
Yeah. I think the ones I bought weren't too bad out of the box. Like I said, in this case, they were fine until I let the thing fly off the end.
The last ones I got from Amazon were really good too. The ones that I originally put in the 301, the first prototype of it, they worked okay. But these last ones that I got, all I did was put a little bit of an extra 3-in-1 oil in them, and they worked absolutely fabulously.
Yeah, I like those ones you bought recently. Those have I like the colors on them better. They got like black trim and stuff instead of green. This weird green and red trim, which just like I'm like, of all the colors, Christmas like rails. It looks like I've got Christmas. Yeah, like I got a Christmas printer over here with these rails. Look, I can just cover them all up with plastic. Like. Oh, yeah. You'll never see that. Don't worry about it.
You know how that works just as well as I do.
Oh, okay, yeah. It's the cheapest thing you can find.
I got some green. I got some red. You want to use that? Sure. That's how that works.
Yeah. And that red piece is just like this like flap that just is supposed to collect dust and push it away. It's a sweep. So, which I thought was cool. I was like, oh, okay. I understand what that's there for now, because I never really understood why there was this little piece of red flap on the end. Like, but yeah, that makes sense to keep dust out of there from clogging
up. Like the cow catcher on the front of an old locomotive.
Yep. It just pushes stuff around.
Yep. That's awesome.
Yep.
No, that's very cool. CNC Factory Supply on AliExpress. I'll have to check that out.
Yeah,
Hey,
AliExpress.
3D printing and painting. How are you tonight?
Hello.
One of the projects that I'm going to do, hopefully right after the 301, I want to put together a DIY CNC, and I know the mostly printed CNC is out there and a very popular one, but I want to see if I can make something a little bit more um, more metal to it and more of a uh, something where makers can build it and put. My goal is to make it so that way you can put like a either like a 2x4 sheet in it. Ultimately, maybe make it scalable to a 4x8, but I'd like to make it so that way um, I can have a very, very small CNC area and then just have it with a router and put that in there. But I want to, that's one of the next builds I want to do for the channel is that one. And then the other one that I want to do is, and Nick, you and I were kind of talking about this, is developing a 3D printer that more or less would sit on a floor, but when you have it sit on the floor, you would be able to put like a long track of 2020 extrusion and then basically make the 3D printer as long as you wanted on a floor. And then if you wanted to take a gymnasium and make a printer, 20 feet long, you could literally do that. And it would simply use a gearing system to walk back and forth across that 2020 extrusion. I want to try something like that. I think it would be a neat printer to make almost an unlimited size. So that, I know they have the belt ones and things like that, but I think you lost your sound there, Brian.
Nope. Yeah, you get muted. Yep.
Oh, he's talking to somebody. What do you think of Dremel adapter for a Core XY style machine? For like a 3D printer, Mark? So taking like a Core XY and adding a Dremel to it? I think I'd be fearful of my heated plate getting a hole in it. That would be my biggest fear.
I think, yeah, well, ideally, he would probably put a different plate of some sort on it, but using it as a CNC, I don't think, if you try to use it as CNC, I don't think it would work terribly well just because the belts, like your 3D printing works, you don't need a lot of like pull on the head to move it around, but yeah, if you want to do like a CNC, you're going to need something a little more stiff, like, rack and pinion or screws or something like that to move things around because you need more torque, and the belts are just going to like twist and stretch. So you're going to get like weird stuff. Yeah, I wouldn't recommend belts for a CNC. Rob, you have a little CNC. Is that all like screw driven, or how does that one work?
Yeah, so I've got one of the woodpecker CNCs, and I think woodpecker was like one of the original types of designs of this. But it's the one I've got is the Sane Smart, and that one is all lead screws like you find in your 3D printer, and it works really well. I upgraded it to a trim router versus the what is it, the like 555 motor or whatever that model number of the standard like RC motor is. But the trim router was like the best upgrade for that because one, I can get off of that 1/8 inch bit and put a 1/4 inch bit in the trim router, and that 1/4 inch bit can, along with it actually being able to like cut aluminum. The nice thing is that when it comes to wood, it just cooks right through it. So
you can get a deeper cut with it because you got a more powerful motor, right?
Yeah. So that's what's really, really nice about it. And all I did was there was a Thingiverse model that basically you just take the standard motor out, take the one part that is holding the motor out and replace it with the 3D printed part, and it holds that trim router perfectly. And then what I did is I just created a little 3D print adapter for the original motor so I could stick that one back in there so I could actually work with either one. But I noticed that once I put the trim router in, I was like, nope, that's it. I'm just using this. It works so well. And then I've got a little collet adapter to go down to the 1/8-inch size. But what I find is works better is if you just buy the 1/4-inch bit that goes down like the Donald here is saying he's got a Shapeoko. And they've got the bits, I think, that go from like the 1/4-inch down to the smaller one. So I really like it. I think it's a cool little tool. I would like a bigger one, and that's where my hang up is, because it's only like 300 by 180 is the build area that you can cut with. And the problem with cutting such a small area is, unless you're doing like a little craft piece of wood, you really can't do much with it. So that's why I want to build a larger build, so I'd like to cut out, holiday shapes and stuff like that with it, for like out in the lawn and stuff like that. And I think a 2x4 size, 2 feet by 4 feet would be a good build size for something like that. I just don't, I don't have one built, and unless I'm going to spend $1,000 on, like Donald saying, like that Shapeoko is a really nice unit, and I would love to have one. I'm so cheap. I don't want to spend the money for one. So for me, I think I'm going to try billing one. So yeah, engraving and milling are definitely two different things, Mark. Yeah, totally agree. Absolutely.
Yep. No,
But yeah, that's a cool project I would like to work on, and I'd like to do it for the channel because I love building tools to do different things. I think that's just so cool that that you can build your own tools in this day and age. And I mean, other than like, a hammer or something like that. I mean, I'd like to also do some forging. All right, CW3D, thanks for hanging out, buddy. Appreciate you stopping by the stream tonight. 2,500 with 2,500, 3,000 with other software. Is that what the Shapeoko is, Donald? It's I mean, I've seen it, and I'm like, the first video I saw of that thing, I'm like, yes, I want one. So I saw the price tag, and I go, I won't be buying one. I mean, that was really how that
was. Yeah. So for me, the biggest thing with all this stuff is being a software guy. Like I don't care how good your software is. If I can't mess with it, I don't want it. So I literally don't care. So if that Ender 3 didn't run Marlin and I could reload it, I wouldn't own it. So I mean, that's why I won't buy a lot of printers, that are out there, because it's like I don't know what's in there. They don't tell you what's in there, and it's all proprietary. You don't know how the board works or what have you. So for me, it's like I'm either gonna build my own, which is what I'm doing with Rob, or I'm going to buy something that's already fairly open to begin with. It's pretty well documented by the manufacturer. So, or I'll just, I'll buy it for the mechanicals and just swap the board out with something I can mess with. So for me, I'm big on the software. I want to be able to update it, because Marlin, from what came with my Ender 3 to what I have now with 2.0, like I got, all this extra functionality and just improvements in the new firmware that I just didn't have when I bought the machine. And, I've had to put a new board in it and things like that. But for me, it's just, I have more fun messing with this stinking thing than I do using it. Yeah. So, I mean, messing with the firmware, messing with the, tweaking this, like, okay, how can I make this work a little better or be a little more reliable? Like, I just got a PEI bed for the first time. And if you don't have one, just get one. It's worth $1 million, and they only cost $30. So
I told you
go
that,
get one.
Dude.
You like, I don't think I've put more than just like skirts and brims and stuff in my I have a giant tub like this big, this tall, of failed prints, and I haven't put anything but skirts in there since I bought that bed.
Yep. Now, Donald, maybe but I mean, so here's something interesting that I found out. At least it's my experience so far, and maybe Donald, you might know better. So I saw the Shapeoko, and I saw the Saint Smart one, and I got that small little router because or CNC, whatever you want to call it. But basically, the ability then to cut and do woodworking or whatever with the SainSmart CNC, right? So I got that, and I think, and I watched a lot of videos online about it, but where like you have a 3D printer community, and the 3D printer community's got Slicer and Prusa Slicer and Cura and Fusion 360 and all these other very much free applications to be able to create stuff. When I started looking at the CNC stuff, the software is just terrible. I can't seem to find, other than very expensive pay software, good software to do the cutting, to do and really the best software I found to do all the pathing and everything else is um Fusion 360. And it works, but to me it seems so much harder to do CNC work with Fusion 360 or the other tools. It either seems to be like two ends of the spectrum. Either you have one where you get this really, really complex tool and it's got all these really great features that are probably more designed for CNC machines, like a Tormach or something along those lines where you're machining a part. And then I find you got the other end of the spectrum, where the software is too user friendly and doesn't give you enough power. There doesn't seem to be anything really good in the middle that's either free or so inexpensive that it makes it good for makers. And that was my biggest frustration with doing CNC stuff. I had a real difficulty trying to find good quality software to do the things that I wanted to do easily. I mean, I could do them. They just seem very, very like
Cumbersome.
a lot of extra steps, you know?
Yeah. No, I think the thing with CNC is because it's a subtractive process, right? It and it has all these different tools you could theoretically have where it's like, well, okay, to do this piece, I need this bit, and to do this piece, I need this bit. And so there's all that stuff is baked into this software. So you can essentially have all these, what we would do filament changes, they've got tool changes. And so that's all of that stuff. And so it becomes a lot more difficult, I think, than with additive stuff where it's like, well, everything I'm doing with the 3D printer is just the same plastic. And it deals with the fact that the shape looks like this instead of me having to cut around with a particular tool to do that. So yeah, I think it's definitely different from that regard. And that to me too, I agree. That's the part that makes me go, maybe I don't want a CNC, because to me that also sounds kind of like a pain in the butt to have to do that. But if it can do it nicely, I think the thing is getting to the point where it could figure all that out for you. Like, oh, you have a hole right here. Here's the kind of bit you need to make that hole. But then it's like, well, now I have to have all these different tool heads to do that work if it's going to do it kind of automatically. But yeah, I mean, it would be, you'd think about it, you're like, here's all the tools I have. Please figure out how I can make this part with these like 3 bits I have. Like, that would be super complicated for the software to sort out.
Now I tried, it's interesting, Donald, you're recommending or talking about Carbide Create. Now I tried that, but to me it seemed to only that's where it kind of and maybe I was using the free version, or maybe it's because I don't have a Shapeoko, but I tried that software and it does do some of the things that I wanted to do, but then it didn't seem to have a lot of features compared to like Fusion 360, where and that's what I'm currently using. It just seems like a lot of work in Fusion 360, and maybe it's just because I haven't done it enough. But yeah, it just seemed like all the pathing. It was very easy in Carbide Create. I was able to get stuff done in it, but it just seemed like it didn't have enough features. And maybe I just have to give it another try. It was just when I started up, and to your point, Nick, there's a lot more complexity to it because you are removing things and you are doing those extra.
Well, there's certain things you just can't do, right?
Yeah.
Like if there's a hole underneath, well, you can't do that. it can only do one side of it essentially, and then if you need to do the other side, you have to somehow like flip it over. But because the other thing too is like you're starting with something, right? So you have to tell it like my plate's this big, or at least you have to have a plate bigger than the area of your design to start with. So there's all these kinds of other weird things, and like I think you said, you have to like here you need to start here on the material, and then it draws all the stuff from there. So like it is it's a totally opposite thing from what we do, where we start with nothing and we build it up, where this is like cutting it out of something. So don't worry about the cats. I understand the cats. My cat will sit there and claw at my door of my office to try and get in. And every day, like clockwork, about 4:30, I'm in here trying to work still, and she's in here begging me for food, even though we have an automatic feeder that feeds her at 4:30. So all she has to do is go down there and get her food.
An automatic feeder.
yeah. We just bought we bought one. You just fill it up with a bunch of food, and then we only have to fill it every week or two. But yeah, it just feeds her it gives her in like 2 different feeding cycles at dinner. So one at like 4:30 and one later, so she doesn't eat too much. At
Catbot 5000 is the
yeah.
So it's like it's all automated. I don't even have to worry about feeding her, but she's up here begging me like, please feed me, and I'm like, you've already been fed. What are you coming and bothering me for? So yeah, it's just funny. But like every day, I know when it's 4:30 because she's up here bothering me, looking at me like,
very cool.
Please.
So we got about 10 minutes left here of the stream. Brian, what I always like to kind of go around and talk about filaments we're using or things that we're currently doing that were 3D prints that we've done recently that we're either enjoying or proud of or whatnot. Like I said, I got that atomic filament coming in with that Starry Night, so I'm excited about that one. Anything you've been using lately?
Well, I've got my Overture PETG that I've been printing the face shield parts with, and that's really all I've been doing for like the last week or so.
Yeah. Now, so interesting enough, you're talking about the face shield. So, I wanted to do that. I wanted to start printing masks or face shields or whatever. And I wanted it to go local, right? I wanted it to go towards the local community here, where in the Rockford, Illinois area. And I reached out to several, not one, not two, a number of them. And every single one of them did not want any of the PPE 3D printed. Did you run into that? Where are you sending yours? I'm curious more than anything else.
I kind of followed Ripcord's lead, who's doing the stuff with Masks for Docs, and they are running a Slack server, and there is a local channel for San Antonio, Texas. So there is somebody else coordinating that effort, and I am simply printing parts. And once you get like 50 of the shield parts printed, you can schedule with them, and they'll come by and pick them up off your porch. And if you need supplies, like if you're running low on filament or whatever, and they've got some, they'll leave you some filament when they pick the stuff up.
Okay.
So I don't have to worry about really the logistics of it. I print.
Yeah. Are they just picking up the printed piece? They have like the face shield itself.
Yeah. So they've got different people doing different stuff. So people are some people are doing like the either the hole punching or the cutting or whatever of the actual plastic shield piece. I'm doing printing on just the little headband part.
Okay. Yeah, and I think with that stuff, it's a little easier if there's a group collecting things and bringing it together and then distributing it from there. That probably works out a little bit easier because they can, they might have some networking they can leverage to do it.
Exactly. Yeah, because there's a whole bunch of people that do different things in there. So.
Yeah, and I know in the Rockford area here, there hasn't been as much of a surge as I think, like in Chicago by us, which isn't too far from here.
Yeah. Yep.
Luckily, once you get past kind of the suburbs of the metropolitan area of Chicago, it definitely dies down as far as severity. So I think out here we haven't seen as much of an impact, like where me and Rob live versus you go east about half an hour to an hour and it gets pretty bad. So or worse. I mean, none of it's New York for sure. I mean, I think that's been the hardest hit, but Chicago has definitely seen a little bit of a bump.
Nice, Donald. So Donald says he's got designed a cutting face shields out of 2-liter bottles, but he's working on a headband that eliminates the need to punch holes in the shield. So that's cool. Very cool. Very cool. So you've just been printing shields, and that's it, huh?
Yeah, pretty much. Yeah.
That's all right, man. That's awesome. That's awesome. Like I said, I had all the printers here, and I called a couple places, and they were like, "Nope, we're good. We're totally set." I'm like, "Okay."
Yeah, and I think some places just had the extra supplies too. I think that's the thing. Like there was just areas where it was so bad that they ran out quickly, whereas some other areas probably have quite a bit, and there was time to get more to prepare. And some of them may have just been more prepared in the first place, because I know there's a big disparity between different states as far as how prepared they were for something like this.
And it even varies in the state, like you had mentioned earlier. Chicago, which is probably 90 miles, to the center of Chicago.
Oh yeah, don't even know if it's that far. Yeah.
Yeah, so 70, 90 miles, whatever. It's not terribly far, but it's far enough away that when you look at like the website for the Illinois Department of Public Health and you look at that area, it's all centralized mostly in Chicago. When you start getting further out where we are, I think when I looked today, there were 6 cases in my zip code. That was it. Out of
it's pretty.
Yeah, it's a very small number. Probably 100,000 people in the area and 6. So, I mean, it's great, but at the same time, it's certainly not a lot of need for that gear. So I'm like, okay, no problem. Call me if you need me. So,
and I think that's the big thing.
Charles, were you printing anything other than the robot?
No, that's about it. Between that and work, that's about it.
Yep. Nick, any new filaments lately? Anything cool there?
No, just like I said, I'm trying to ration out my filament a little bit as far as what colors I use for what, and try to spread the level a little bit so you can keep my color variety up without running out of anything in particular. So I got plenty of black and white.
That dry box that I just built, man.
Yeah, I've got another one of these bins that I've used to store some stuff in that I'm going to convert into another dry box. I've got one, but I need to make a heated one like you have for sure.
Yeah, if
so that I can dry things out.
Video, that is a cool video. I put this dry box together, and this thing is amazing. I used that white styrofoam insulation to insulate the box, and it made all the difference. This box stays at like 80 degrees Fahrenheit or about 30 whatever Celsius. It's perfect. The heater runs for a couple of minutes, and then that's it. And then it's off for like 3 or 4 or 5. It hardly runs at all. But the filament, you pull it out, it's like nice and warm, and you throw it on a printer, and it just extrudes like it's awesome. I love it.
Yeah,
so, nothing better than filament fresh out of the dryer.
Oh yeah, that's right. That's how I feel every time I pull a roll off, man. I'm like, oh yeah.
You feel like, oh, it's nice, hold it up there. Yeah.
Brian, you nailed it, man. That's exactly
Get real weird with it, Yeah.
Like pulling a fresh towel out the dryer, huh?
Yep.
Right. Yeah, give it a big sniff. Yeah. No, I need to build one because the one you made isn't too complicated. I just need to buy the heater and stuff, which I think I have on my things to buy later on Amazon. I have probably about $500 worth of stuff sitting in my save for later on Amazon that I've looked at and just debated for days. I really want to buy this, but I don't want to buy it. And then I just save it for later. And then eventually one day I'm just going to be like, all right, I need it. I actually have a need for it today. Because there's a lot of stuff I want to buy, but I can't think of like, what am I going to use it for right now? But once I need it, it's going right in the cart and out the door.
If they only had something to store all that, list of items. Maybe they would call it like a wish list or something, you know?
Yeah, see, but if I put in a wish list and I'm like, I hope someone buys it for me, but no one buys me anything. So
you make a private wish list. Now I've got the lists of things, but I have a fair amount of stuff in the save for later section of the cart.
Yeah. I leave it in there because then every time I go to my cart, it's like right there. It's like, boom. Yeah. Hey, remember, you should buy that. And I'm like, quit tempting me myself.
No, I don't want that
exactly.
Yet. Maybe next time.
Exactly. I can just kind of go through the list every time. Like, do I still need that? Like some stuff I just, oh yeah, that thing's out of stock. You can just delete that. It's been in there for like 2 years.
You know, a lot of people make filament dryers out of food dehydrators. I bought a food dehydrator.
Yeah, I saw someone do that.
And a big plastic tub.
Mm-hmm.
Huge, like a $20 plastic tub from like Joann's or something. And I cut a hole in the lid of it, and I kind of glopped some stuff around it to kind of glue it on there, and that's my filament dryer.
Nice. Yeah, I've seen a few people do the dehydrator thing too.
All right, so let's see here. Daniel, you were talking about lack enclosure and need active cooling. I'm posting this really cool Thingiverse link in here. I so want to build this, and your lack enclosure is the perfect reason to. It is a servo automated iris for your whatever
awesome.
to allow cooling.
Receiving Colonel Shepard's IDC. Open the iris.
It's so funny because I thought about building something like this the other day.
It the moment I saw it, I'm like, I don't know when I'm going to use this. It's so cool. I need one of these, and I saw it. So I'm when I get to the point like your IKEA lack enclosure that has that, I just want the iris to go.
Oh, those are like, that's just one of those like 5-cent servos too. Those things are super cheap.
I thought it was really cool when I saw that, so that's why I posted in the chat. So
if I did that,
Daniel,
I would have Stargate
on your enclosure. Send me a picture, please. I would love to see that working.
Oh, they got a video.
Oh yeah, the video is way cool. I saw that.
It sounds cool too.
I know.
The servo's got like the swoosh noise to it. Oh, it sounds awesome. All right, okay, I'm gonna have to download all this now. Gosh darn it.
See, look at that.
I don't even know what I'm gonna put it on.
Yeah.
I don't even know what I'm gonna put on. You can buy these servos on Amazon for like $1 for 5 or something. They're pretty cheap.
I know. Print it big and have it inside your cat opening.
Oh
yes.
Oh, and
when the cat
then the cat will get sliced in half. Yeah. It'll get stuck inside. Yeah, no, that'd be cool though. I thought about putting a door on it of some sort, but I couldn't think of a good way. But yeah, maybe this would actually work. I could just put it behind it, you know.
All I can think of now is a cross between that servo little iris opening and closing and the doors in Star Wars.
Star Trek.
No, Star Wars. You know how they like when you're in Star Wars, they're like.
Oh yeah, they're really fast. Yeah.
The cat's halfway through.
Yeah, right.
Oh, poor
No, that is pretty cool. That is pretty cool.
Yeah, I saw that and I just thought that was so cool. Oh man. All right. Brian, for anybody else in the chat, do you want to tell a little bit about your channel before we wrap up tonight?
Okay. I got a YouTube channel. It's the BB3D channel, and I do 3D printing stuff and electronic stuff. A lot of how-to type videos for 3D stuff. I've got a kind of getting started in electronics with Arduino Uno type stuff going on. So I've got that series going. I think I have the 6th episode of that coming out either Monday or Monday after this Monday. And that's that. So.
Yep. And if you haven't checked out Brian's channel, check it out. It's very cool. I've watched a number of videos and obviously a subscriber and fellow maker as well. So very cool stuff. Yeah. So I think we are just at our 2-hour point here, a little over a 2-hour point. So I'm going to go ahead and wrap things up here. Brian, Nick, Charles, hang on a second here, and I'll be right back. All right. So thank you everyone for hanging out tonight. I do appreciate all the support hanging out. Don't forget to check out the channel and our Discord. It's a really great place to hang out and talk with other makers. If you enjoyed this, you will love the Discord. Just lots of makers hanging out, talking about maker stuff. We will hopefully have another one in 2 weeks. I know it's been a few weeks since we had a tech talk, but should be back on a regular schedule again. And our next one will be in 2 weeks from tonight. So thanks again for hanging out and watching. And we will see everyone next time. Thanks so much, everybody.